Guys, one more big inhale. Beautiful. And so this week is food. And I will come at this from the perspective of someone who is just a human being who eats. Like, I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm embarrassed. I said it in the email of how little formal schooling I was given and tested on about what our diet does to our entire body. So a lot of this and where I'm coming from with this is based on my own research and experience and the later like certifications that I got. I learned more in my like strength and conditioning certification than I did in my doctor of physical therapy degree about fueling. And that's how I started to see it. When I got my strength and conditioning certification, I started to see like, oh, food is fuel, right? Like I never really thought about it like that before. Um, and now that I have a toddler who I'm responsible for feeding, I'm really conscious of what we're putting in all of our bodies, right? I look at her, I have control over what goes in hers for the most part and what goes in my own. But man, the environments that we're exposed to dictate a lot about um, what we ultimately put in our body and then what ultimately becomes part of us. So I'll talk more about that in a second, but let's do how we've started every week. We'll rewrite our identity statement. It is totally okay if that has changed since week one. It's 5 weeks later now. So you're a person who, fill in the blank. Go ahead and write it down. And then we'll do a little brain dump, 2 minutes. No idea is a bad idea of the behaviors and action items that you did last week that put votes in the ballot box for who that person is. So go ahead, write those down. You got 2 minutes. Again, no idea is a bad idea. Open the floodgates and write them down. There you go. If you are on a roll, keep going. If you are stuck, that's okay. And then answer the next question that's on our worksheet, which is by implementing the tiny habit that we were going to implement last week. How did your movement change? if you were able to do it at all. I'm going to shut up. You guys answer that question. Okay. So I'll talk for a second. I put all this in the worksheet, and I talked a little bit about it in the email that I sent. But like I said, I'm embarrassed about how little formal schooling I got, and it concerns me that like I went to one of the best schools in the country, and we got none of it. So like, what the heck are all the other schools doing? I now know. I keep saying this. The more I learn, the more I'm realizing like how little I really know about things. I now know that food plays a significant role in our body's inflammatory response and in our body's response to healing and hydration too. So I kind of group those two things together of eating real food and hydrating adequately. And this is actually what I learned in my strength and conditioning certification. So if I had to break it down into like insultingly bare minimum explanation, okay, protein repairs and builds tissue. Right? There's 3 macronutrients: protein, fat, carbs. Protein repairs and builds tissues. Okay, things like your muscle, your collagen, those types of tissues. Fat builds hormones and cells and supports the brain and nerves. Okay, and the best example I can give off the top of my head is like breast milk. Breast milk has tons of fat in it because a growing baby is growing a nervous system and a brain that takes up so much of its energy. It needs the fat to do that. So fat supports our nervous system and cell walls and hormones and things like that. And then carbs are the quickest and cleanest source of fuel. Okay, so everybody knows about the marathoners who carbo load the night before. That's because carbs are our quickest and easiest access to a molecule called ATP. ATP is what fuels every mechanism within our cells to be able to do the transport that they need, to be able to generate the supplies that they give and the waste that they give off. So carbs are our quickest way of getting that energy into those cells and into those systems. That's, again, that is insulting, those 3 things, of simplifying them into one sentence of like 5 words apiece. But that is absolute 101. That's what I'm teaching my 2-year-old right now, right? It's what I teach my high schoolers, because if we can get a basic understanding of that, then sure, we can understand lots of things about the intricacies of what they do. But that's what, when you flip over a nutrition label, that's what you're going to see. So you need to know the amounts of those things and what each one does. So that's the nutrient component. The other really important thing is whole food versus, everybody's talking about this now is processed food. So I'm going to use, and we're not even going to talk about like food that's made in a factory. The example I'm going to give you is that of an apple, right? And this is all in the worksheet. When you eat a whole apple, that apple has cells in it, right? It's made up, every living thing is made up of cells. And those cells have membranes. And if you think of that cell, go back to your high school biology days, right, as a little room, okay, there's 4 walls that make up the room. That's the membrane. The membrane is what keeps everything inside the cell staying inside the cell. When we eat a whole food like an apple, like a whole uncooked apple, or nobody does this, a whole uncooked potato, or a whole uncooked piece of broccoli, your body and your digestive system, starting with your eyes and your hands to tell you what the heck you're about to eat, and then cascading down into your mouth and your chewing and your salivary glands, and then everything that goes on through the stomach and all of that. I'll spare you that. When you eat the whole cell, the whole room, your body has to do a whole heck of more work than if you had cooked the thing, because cooking makes the membranes mushy. Right? That's why a cooked apple is softer than a not cooked apple. And so you change the composition of the cell wall, right? And the cell wall is what gives us the fiber. And the fiber is important because the fiber slows our digestion. And when our digestion gets slowed, we're more effective and efficient at absorbing the nutrients of that food. Okay, so we're going to stick with the apple example, right? And this is like, God, how did I have to learn this by myself? I eat 3 times a day. I do not use geometry 3 times a day. But anyway, so if we stick with our whole apple, and then we break it down into applesauce. Okay, so let's say you take the whole apple and you grate it down. And man, my kid was sick last week, and I wanted to avoid fiber because she had a stomach bug. I wanted to be like really soft on her stomach. So I manually, physically broke down the cell wall of the apple with a cheese grater. Right, took a whole apple, grated it down, and then I gave her the applesauce. Right, and that is lighter on her stomach because I manually have broken down the cell wall for her. Right, otherwise she'd have to digest and chew it herself. So we're not necessarily changing the nutrients within it, but we're changing the efficiency and effectiveness with which it is absorbed. So the fiber affects a significant role. And when we look at food labels, we're going to check the fiber content. I have to double check the standards. It's for adults, I think it's 25 grams of fiber a day is the recommended daily amount. It is abysmal how many Americans walking around right now have totally inadequate fiber intakes. So again, looking at this without judgment, because it's mostly our environment that's caused this, we just have to become aware of it. Right? Our ancestors, our caveman ancestors, barely had access to be able to cook stuff. Right? So they found a potato in the ground, and they ate it. Right? There was no cooking it, there was no peeling it, there was no putting salt on it. That was what they were eating. So that's the biology that we're working with nowadays. So I hope all that makes sense. Again, that is, I have spoken with a lot of dietitians. I should get one in here to give a more thorough understanding of the food and what it does and how it affects us. But that's outside of my scope. I'm going to stay in my lane. I'll talk about movement for days, but food is one thing that I am learning more about and want to learn more about. So now we're going to do the fun thing. Go to your pantry if you are able to. Hopefully you're mobile. Go to your pantry. Pick out anything. It could be something you ate today. It could be something you're going to eat tomorrow. It could be something you're just having there that you're like, oh, I didn't even remember that I had this. I went in. I picked out 3 things just so that I could give examples. The one of them was breadcrumbs, right? Seasoned 4C breadcrumbs with Pecorino Romano cheese. The other was this Costco organic peanut butter that's naturally more creamy somehow. And then the last one I grabbed off the counter was this giant bag of chia seeds from Costco, which has become one of my go-to foods. And I grabbed that mostly to use it as an example. So this is how I personally, when I pick something out of the grocery store or something off the counter, this is the order that I look at the stuff on the nutrition label, right? I don't know if this is right. I'm sure there's probably 50 different ways to do this. This is how I choose to do it. And I'm interested in how you guys choose to do it as well. Because when I started asking people about this a couple months ago, they said the first place they look is calories. And for me, that's actually one of the last places that I look. Because I'll give you a soapbox for a minute here. Caloric density is different than nutritional density. And Dan Lieberman, who's the Harvard biologist who I love, does a really good example of explaining how when we changed from hunter-gatherers to farmers, when we were hunter-gatherers, we ate whatever the heck we could find. So we were getting all sorts of nutrients from varying types of food, whatever was in season, whatever was like regionally available, fruits and vegetables and meat, whatever it was there, we just ate it. When we started to farm, we became reliant on like sustainability, right? And like predictability of crops, because now we had bigger families to feed. So we didn't really care so much about the nutritional density of the food. And in doing so, we lost that variety. We got the predictability of, okay, these grains will grow over and over again year after year, but we lost the variety in the diet. So we gained caloric density, but we lost nutritional density. So anywho, that was my soapbox. When we look at a nutritional label, the first place I go to is the ingredients. First place I look. Can I pronounce whatever the heck is in this stuff? Okay, in my breadcrumbs, first ingredients, toasted breadcrumbs made from enriched bread. And then it tells me what's in the enriched bread. Second ingredient, high fructose corn syrup, yeast, salt, vegetable oil, soybean oil, cottonseed oil, and or canola oil. Sugar contains 2% or less of wheat gluten, dextrose, soy flour. Okay, I will stop there. So, God almighty, the second freaking ingredient is high fructose corn syrup in the breadcrumbs. Okay, in the breadcrumbs. So the first place I go is ingredients. The second place I go, and I want you guys at home doing this in real time. So look at the ingredients of whatever food you picked. Let some of it surprise you, because it might. The second place I look is total sugars and grams of added sugar, because it hides everywhere, every freaking where. And when I get through this, I will tell you the story of Nick and Mai's competition. But so go ahead and look at the grams of added sugar. In my breadcrumbs, total sugar is 2 grams, includes 2 grams of added sugars. Right. And then it gives the percent daily value. But I don't honestly, I don't give a lot of weight to the percent daily value, because everybody's caloric needs are different. And that's based off of a 2,000 calorie diet. And like, you might need a 2,000 calorie diet. I might need a 2,200 calorie diet. It's very person dependent. So I don't even look at the percent daily value, because that's just suggested by some arbitrary source. So I look at ingredients, I look at sugars. Then I go to the macronutrients, right? Well, then I go to the serving size. Okay, and I look at how much of this do I have to consume to get these measurements, these units. Okay, so some of that will surprise you, right? This is a 1/4 cup of breadcrumbs. And of course, nobody's eaten a 1/4 cup of breadcrumbs at a time. You're putting it on something. So it's hard to get an exact reference with that. I grab my peanut butter here. That's a little easier to look at the serving size, right? 2 tablespoons. Okay, that might be something that I put on a banana, or I put in a smoothie or something like that. So then I look at the serving size. After the serving size, then I go to the 3 macronutrients. So I then usually look for protein. Because I've just, I don't know, protein's kind of a buzzword right now, but protein is satiating. So the higher protein that it has, the less likely I'm still going to be hungry after I eat it. And oh man, I have to go look up exactly the suggested and recommended protein, grams of protein in an average person's diet. In a bodybuilder, it's usually 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Now, of course, we live in America and we don't use kilograms. But if you convert your weight to kilograms, it's about like a 1-to-1 ratio. For the average person, I'm going to say it's a 1-to-1 ratio. For a bodybuilder, it's a little bit more. So protein intake is important, and that's the next place that I look. That after protein, I'll usually go up to fat or carbs to see just kind of what's in that, right? Like what's making this up. Knowing in the back of my head Okay, protein builds tissues, fat builds hormones and my nervous system, basically, and carbs are a source of energy. Right? So not a lot of fat in my breadcrumbs, 1.5 grams of fat and 18 grams of carbohydrate. Okay. And I'll send out to you guys those recommended guidelines, I guess, but you have to make it individual to you. Because again, they have to do this for massive amounts of people. You should be able to do it for yourself. Then on the bottom there, you'll see like vitamin D and calcium and iron and potassium. That's the micronutrients that are in it. And that's the nutritional density. Like I just talked about with the farmers and the hunter-gatherers, that's the nutritional density. So it'll tell you on there, right? This has no vitamin D. This has 60 milligrams of calcium, 1.3 milligrams of iron, 70 milligrams of potassium. And that's actually where I'll go look over the daily values. And I'll see like, oh, what of my micronutrients is in here for percent daily value? And there's not a whole heck of a lot in my breadcrumbs. So that's where I did it on our outline here, right? We look at the serving size, we look at the ingredients, fat, protein, carbs, fiber. Oh, I didn't talk about this. Fiber. Dietary fiber, 2 grams of dietary fiber in my breadcrumbs. The fiber slows down your digestion. It makes it more absorbable and usable for your body. Again, I think it's 25 grams of fiber, like for an adult, that we're supposed to get. Every nutritionist who I talk to has said we all need to eat more fiber in our diets. And maybe it's, my algorithm and the videos that I keep getting shown on social media. But like, I saw a video from like a colorectal surgeon the other day. She was like, we got to eat more fiber. Like I'm seeing far too many digestive issues and far too many colorectal issues that could be resolved or eliminated or prevented if we just ate fiber. Okay, and fiber that comes from real food. So there we go. Ticked them all off. Grams of added sugar. I put that as bonus on there. Honestly, it is the second thing that I look at. I look at ingredients, boom, then grams of added sugar. So pick another item from your pantry. Hopefully that was kind of eye-opening for whatever you picked. I'm curious. I'll ask you guys after what foods you looked at. Okay, and I'll do it again for peanut butter. Right. So this is Let me interrupt and tell this story now. When Nick and I got engaged, we got engaged in Santorini. We were on vacation for like 11 days. We went to Rome for a couple days. We went to Santorini, Greece. Then we went to Athens. And we got engaged while we were in Santorini. And he was awesome. He did good. He did really good. And we came back from that, and we were getting married a year later. And when we first met, he was on the tail end of losing 70 pounds. And he has since, God, I admire him so much for it. He has since like kept it off. He's really healthy. He goes to the gym 5-6 days a week. He's taken really, really good care of himself for us. And we obviously came back from that trip. We were on vacation. We had a great time. We were eating as much as we wanted. We were also walking a ton. But he looked at me and he said, I want to lose some weight before the wedding. And I said, okay, well, how can I like best support you? Right? And so we developed this. I didn't really have to lose any weight before the wedding, but I knew like when I eat good, I feel good. So we came up with a contest. And the way we scored the contest is we gave points to different things. There was maybe 5 categories, if I'm remembering them correctly. If you went a whole day eating good, and we defined good as food with no added sugar in it. Okay, so and it didn't matter if you had one M&M, you got no points for that day. You had to go a whole day food with no added sugar in it. That was how we defined good. That was like you got plus 5 points if you did that. If you had like a sip of alcohol, it was minus 5 points. Right? If you took a walk that day, it was 3 points. If you did yoga, it was 2 points. If you meditated, it was 1. If you okay, I can't remember the other things, but basically, then we had a calendar that we put on the front door, and we wrote our point totals for the day. And so at the end of the week, we would know, okay, I'm up by 1 or I'm down by 1. And I think we did it for maybe we did it for a month or 6 weeks. And we said the loser had to do 4 hours of uninterrupted whatever the other one wanted to do. So like if I wanted him to ballroom dance for 4 hours, he had to do it, right? If he wanted me to watch his high school hockey videos for 4 hours, I had to do it. Right? So that was what was on the line. And man, if it did anything, we started to look at the ingredients on our food and we were like, what? We bought a bag of vegetables from Costco and then looked at it and it had 3 grams of added sugar in it. We're like, what on God's green earth? How is there added sugar in our vegetables, our frozen vegetables? But there was. And so it totally opened up our eyes, which brings me back to the peanut butter. I tell you, there's a method to the madness. We get there. Brings me back to the peanut butter. If you go look on any grocery store shelf at the Skippies and the Jifs and all the other ones, the first ingredient will be peanuts. The second ingredient might be oil. The third ingredient is sugar in some capacity, either straight sugar or high fructose corn syrup, right? Which is why we started to buy the organic peanut butter, naturally more creamy, from Costco, right? And so if we go in my order here, we look at the ingredients: organic peanuts, sea salt. That's it. That's in this. We go up to the serving size, 2 tablespoons. We go down to the fiber, 3 grams of fiber. We go to the protein, 8 grams of protein, 16 grams of fat, and 7 grams of carbs. Right? Then I go down to the micronutrients, not a lot of vitamin D or iron, not a lot of calcium, not a lot of potassium, some, but not a lot. Right? Total sugars, 2 grams of sugar, 0 grams of added sugar. Honestly, that is what I look at. I'm curious what you guys do. Go ahead and write it down. If you have your worksheet printed out, pick your food and make note of all those things, right? Your serving size, the ingredients, the fat, protein, carbs, fiber, and grams of added sugar. And most of you guys who are on here, you're health conscious people. Like, you're probably doing this in some capacity. I just find it so helpful to become aware. Just become aware of it and understand, like, yep, this is what's going into everything. I put in here on our fridge. I don't know if we have to do anything from our fridge. I think you guys are kind of getting the point. I do want to give the example from the chia seeds, mostly to go look at the micronutrients that are in a chia seed. Right, a chia seed's got more calcium and more iron in it than either of those two foods. And it has some potassium, some vitamin A, no vitamin D. It also, like, it takes 3 tablespoons. 3 tablespoons is like a lot of chia seeds. It depends on what you're putting it in, but I'm usually eating like 1.5. Right? If I put them in yogurt, it's a lot of chia seeds. What gets me here is the fiber that's in a chia seed. Right? I noticed since I started adding these to, like, just sprinkling it in wherever I could throughout the day, my digestive system is much happier with the chia seeds in my diet. There's 5 grams of protein in them, 9 grams of fat, 13 grams of carbs. And again, I haven't even mentioned calories. I really haven't, because I haven't paid attention that closely to it, because I know that if it's real food, it's going to be nutrient dense and it's going to be good for me, especially if it's high in protein. It's going to satiate me, so I'm probably not going to overconsume it. If you wanted to lose weight or if you wanted to compose your body differently, we would look and talk more about calories. But honestly, for me, if it comes from God's garden, I tell my patients, like, go ahead, go nuts. You know, if you're going to overindulge on anything, overindulge on apples. You know, or chia seeds, by any means. So we could keep going through this. I think you guys get the point, though. So you could do the same thing for foods in your fridge, where you could, again, look at serving size, ingredients, the macros, the micros, and the fiber. Just to, again, raise some awareness around this stuff. Okay, let's go to the next page. So, little audit of, take a look at the last 3 or 4 days, which, again, there was no holidays. Like, it's the holiday season, so maybe there's stuff in your house. But do you have any idea how much fiber you ate on an average day. Go ahead, write it down. If you think you know what it is, write down the grams of fiber you think you got. Give yourself a ballpark of like zero fiber or 50 grams of fiber. Give yourself an idea. You could put like the number of fruits I have in here, fruits, vegetables, and grams of added sugar. Let's do added sugar next, just because it's kind of in the same ballpark as fiber as far as grams per day. Take a ballpark guess of like grams of added sugar that you've eaten in pick a day of the last couple of days. What do you think you've averaged? And then go through again your average day and think, okay, I usually eat one piece of fruit in a day or 10 pieces of fruit in a day. Give yourself a number on the fruit and then give yourself a number on the vegetables too. So again, no judgment towards any of this, just awareness that we want to bring about. The next point on there is mindfulness when we're eating. I went to a yoga retreat for healthcare providers like a year and a half ago. And it was crunchy. It was loopy. It was out there. It was nice. But man, one of the things they had us do is they gave us each either like an almond or like a sliver of a clementine. Okay. And we practiced mindful eating. And it was strange and eye-opening. And like extreme. Okay. So basically what they had us do is like you sit there and you stare at this thing for a minute in silence. Okay. and then we like touched it, right? And we like moved it around in our hands and like felt what it felt like. And then we smelled it. And we did each of these things for like a minute. It was extreme. So you got this almond and you're looking at it, basically under a microscope. Okay. And we were looking at it, you smell it and you feel it. And I don't think we listened to it. But then they let us like take a tiny bite of it. Right? You take a tiny bite with your eyes closed in a quiet room full of 30 other healthcare providers. It was strange. Like, okay, they really wanted you to like feel the texture and taste the flavor and like make any associations with it that you wanted to, right? If it was juicy, if it was sour, if it was right, like really dive headfirst into it. And it was one of the strangest things I've ever done. And I think about it now and I laugh because like I've never done that, right? And I don't think our ancestors ever would have done that. They were probably much more mindful of eating because they had to work really hard to get whatever they ate. But man, you look at any kid who goes to you go to any public school cafeteria at lunchtime, and there's not a single kid who's mindfully eating. Right? You go to any workplace environment, there's not a single person who's mindfully eating like that. But the point of it was to really connect with the food and your body and to say, okay, would I stop eating this when I was full? Would I like savor it with every bite that I took? And now, right, raise your hand if you've ever eaten anything like in front of a screen, right, in front of a TV or watching something on your phone. Like that is mindless, right? I can count. It happens 6 times a day where I'm like shoving a muffin in my mouth while I'm chasing my toddler. And I'm not mindful of any of that. I gotta get the calories in. I have to get something in my body. So, answer those questions. Like, are you able to stop eating when you're full? Right? Do you find yourself like eating if you're bored, or like eating just a snack, or eating because it's there? Um, the other thing that they suggested was like drinking water while you eat, and adding water to your stomach helps slow again the digestive process and helps you get more effective and efficient at absorbing the nutrients in your food. So do you ever drink water while you're eating consciously? And then like how many times are you eating in front of a screen throughout the day? Um, or like reading, right? I like it. Like my husband will eat his breakfast and flip through the news on his phone, and 50 years ago that would have been the equivalent of mom or dad sitting down at the breakfast table and reading the newspaper while they ate, right? Like it's still distracted. It's just they're different media. Um, so paying attention to your mindfulness while you're eating. Um, and then the last part on our worksheet is paying attention to like when you're actually hungry. We've been ingrained of like eating 3 times a day, and maybe it's now because I'm pregnant, of like there are times that I'm just not hungry, and there are times that I am ravenous, right? but it's not your typical breakfast, lunch, and dinner times. Um, so I'm doing the best I can to pay attention to those hunger cues, um, and eating when I'm hungry and not eating when I'm not. Uh, and like I said, the satiating component has a lot to do with protein. Protein is really satiating. Um, so if you get a hunger cue, what are you using to answer it? What's your go-to snack or food? And what's in that go-to snack or food? That is it actually satisfying it, or is it just putting it off um, for later? So again, I hope all this is like helpful. Again, we want to come at this without a judgmental attitude, and with just raising awareness of our own habits and our own environment, and saying like, okay, this is where I am, and this is where I could get better, and this is where I'm already really good at, or this is one thing I need to tweak or I never thought about. So let's move to our identity statement, which is I'm the type of person who, related to food, right? Understands that food becomes who I am and fuels the activities that I love. I'm a person who sits down when they eat a meal. I'm a person who doesn't look at their phone while they're eating. Whatever you want it to be, go ahead and write it down. This could change too. It probably will. But when we tie a behavior to our identity, we can start to put the votes in the ballot box for that person. So pick your one thing and let's make it small. Right? Again, if you can't do it today or tomorrow, it's too big. It might be, I wrote on here, right? Get conscious of your fiber intake, start to read ingredient labels, start to prep, right? Set aside something right now that you can take to work with you tomorrow that's going to help you make a good choice. Ooh, I'm going to shut up, answer that question, and then I'm going to tell you another kind of story. All right, so hopefully we got our one thing down. And then who benefits when we start to dial in what we're putting in our bodies? It's because it's not just, of course it's you, but it's not just you. So go ahead, answer that. Who benefits? Um, so my last soapbox, because we're nearing the end here, is I saw it was a guy out on the street, and he had a candy bar, and he had, I don't know, a piece of lettuce or an apple. He was going up to people and he said, "Hey, if you had to eat one of these right now and one of these tomorrow, which one's it going to be?" And everybody, of course, everybody picks the candy bar. Every single person. Maybe no, I'm not. Maybe I'm exaggerating. I'll have to find if there was actually a study done on this, or if this was just kind of somebody out on the street having fun. And they said, okay, if I give you the same choice tomorrow, which one would you pack in your lunch tomorrow? And everybody said the lettuce, right, or the apple, or whatever the not the candy bar choice was. A point of any of that is like the you of now, right, sitting here right now, the part of your brain that's like, I need like high caloric density, um, sweet. That is the normal part of you. That is the instinctive part of you that says like, yep, give me that now. I talked about this last week, but our ancestors, if they found a beehive with a ton of honey in it, they'd sit there, they'd eat the whole thing. The same way you or I right now has access to a tub of ice cream, you might eat the whole thing. Right? Like willpower is not a thing when it comes to food. It's instinct that drives it. And that's why our environment is so important for shaping our habits. So, everybody knows, right? If you were going to pack your lunch right now, you're going to your fridge, you're packing all the healthiest stuff you got. You got the hummus, you got the carrots, you got the celery, whatever. You show up to the office tomorrow, it's noon, you had a crappy meeting in the morning, maybe you didn't sleep good tonight, whatever it is. You're like, I'm not eating that. We're going out to lunch. Right? Totally, totally, totally normal, and it is a tale as old as time. That's what happens. We just have to try to shape our environment and our identity around like, what type of person am I? Okay. So again, totally, totally, totally normal. The other important thing I want to touch on is that all the foods that we just talked about, there's high fructose corn syrup in the breadcrumbs because the companies have to make it hyper palatable to feed that instinct, that ancestral instinct that we have to like, if it tastes good, it's got to be good for me. I'm going to eat it. So they load us up with added sugar because we have an instinct to eat it. And we have a non-instinct to say like, well, that doesn't taste good. I'm not going to eat that. Why would I buy that? It's not going to taste good. Right? And if you don't buy it, there's no profit from it. Right? It's cynical to think like that, but it's the way the world is working right now, where the more hyperpalatable they can make the food, the more it feeds into that part of our brain, right? That we all have. We all have that primitive part still, and it drives revenue. It does. So that's the reality of it. And again, now that we know better, we just have to do better. So that is my last soapbox. Let's plan for the week coming up. So what's happening this week? Why is it happening? And how can we best prepare ourselves to handle it? So we'll do that with looking at it through the lens of food and diet. What's coming up this week? It is 2 weeks before Christmas. Hanukkah just started. Think about what's going on in your life. What is happening? Why is it happening? Like, did you put yourself in this situation? and what are you going to do? What tools are you going to give yourself to kind of arm yourself with when that situation arises? Go. Beautiful. So again, take your time with that. I'll give you guys my example, which is like that mindful eating that we did at that yoga retreat was a strange exercise. But it did teach me to like be still while I'm eating. And we have a rule in our house for our toddler that Nick and I should also follow as well, which is when there's food in our mouth, our body is still. Mostly because I read that like most choking accidents for kids happen when there's food in their mouth and they're running around. So like anytime Annie has food in her mouth, when there's food in her mouth, her body is still. That's the one rule. I don't care if you're sitting, I don't care if you're standing still. That's it. I'm going to try to do that this week. Right? We're baking Christmas cookies. We're getting over a stomach bug. I'm a human being, right? There, I'd be lying if I didn't tell you there was leftover Halloween candy still in our pantry, right? But if I'm gonna eat it, I'm gonna do it with my body being still, and I'm gonna try to adhere to that rule. That's gonna be my one tiny habit, and I can already see it coming up for the week. Like, yep, I'm gonna be running around and just trying to eat wherever I can. I'm gonna try to be conscious of that. So give me your takeaway from today. Write that again on the bottom of your sheet, or if you have a notebook that you're writing it in, your takeaway from today. Something you learned, something you became aware of, whatever it is, write it down. You got it. And as usual, I want to know you guys' takeaways from these. It's been insightful to see them, and again, looking at it without judgment, understand other people's perspective and other people's experience around each four of these categories, right? Their sleep, their stress, their movement, and now we're finally on to eating. So I'm finding it helpful to hear from you guys. So I'm going to keep asking. And then the last thing I'll say before we take our deep breaths and we sign off here is like I want to keep serving you guys. This has been really insightful for me. Thank you for like joining me on a whim. I literally woke up in the middle of the night one night and said like, let me try this. And you guys have stuck with me, and it's been really encouraging to me to just have you here. So I'm going to ask you at some point in the next week or so, like if you wanted this to continue in some capacity, or like if you wanted to continue working with me in some capacity, I want to know how. I want to know what that looks like. I want to be able to offer something that you guys actually want. That that's actually going to help. Because again, this is the first time I'm doing anything like this, so I want to know, how do we keep it going? If there was momentum that we've built, how do we keep that momentum going? If we need to do it differently for next time, how and what we would change. So be on the lookout for an email or two, just asking you guys for feedback on, how it's gone so far, what we should do different for next time, and if we wanted to continue this in some capacity or continue working together, what that would look like and what you would want it to be. So just want to put that on the radar for you guys. Again, I hope you're finding value in this. I really appreciate you sharing your time and attention and energy with me. They're our best assets, they're our greatest assets, and they're limited. So the fact that we're here together means everything to me. I'm grateful for it. So 3 big inhales. Again, I like to reach up and lean back and kind of let go of the day with you. So big inhale up, long exhale out. 2 more. Big inhale up. Last one. And guys, thank you so much. Keep moving. We'll see you next week.